Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Third Legacy Tradition Study for December. Today, we're going to be talking about Tradition 12. Um, and this is our last tradition of the year. We have some great plans for next year. We're going to be discussing the 12 principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Stephen and Nancy will be facilitating that discussion, and it's going to be awesome. So, that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Stephen for our discussion for Tradition 12 today.
Okay, again, welcome everyone for our last tradition of the year. That that was Lara. She's the intergroup office manager here at Seattle AA, and I think I'll start off with just a couple of things about Tradition 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. And there's a lot of depth to Tradition 12. In the 12 and 12, the first sentence says, the spiritual substance of anonymity is sacrifice. And the word sacrifice can be pretty cool because sacrifice is often thought of as giving up something of value or something of less value. But that's not the only interpretation of the word. Sacrifice can also be looked at as giving up something that we don't really want for something more valuable. So exactly the opposite of what it's commonly thought of. But why would that be? Why would that be strange in AA, where all our thinking was upside down? So, if it's looked at as we want to sacrifice our old way, like giving up our old ideas and embracing a new idea, it can look pretty different. And at the very end, and then I'll stop for now, they say something that they don't say in any other tradition. They say, we are sure that humility expressed by anonymity is the greatest safeguard that Alcoholics Anonymous can ever have. And that sentence in itself could be a workshop because it's a pretty strong statement that our founders wrote, that it's the greatest safeguard that Alcoholics Anonymous can have. So that can tell us that, hey, maybe there's something to this. So what we do in these tradition studies is people will talk about different experiences and understandings of Tradition 12, and we just go from there. So again, thank you for everyone for being here. And Kent, who's coming all the way from Iowa to participate in this discussion, I'm going to start off with you. And thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you again. So Kent, it's all yours.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm Kent, alcoholic. Can you hear me okay? Am I okay? Thank you. It's so good to see you and Nancy and your friends also. And thank you for inviting me to speak here and be part of it. It really made my day. I played around with my disease for many, many decades and even did the thing where, okay, go ahead and call me an alcoholic, just don't separate me from my alcohol. That's the thing I didn't want. And many judges tried to help educate me, and wives, ex-wives, and so forth. But I finally did enter the program with some humility and desire to be helped in 2010. And I've been here ever since, thanks to wonderful people in that part of the world like Stephen and Nancy and a whole bunch of brothers and sisters there. When I first landed and wanted to be there and wanted to do the right thing, I didn't really get anonymity because I had to be kind of spoon fed and slapped around a little bit. I learned right away, don't yell out in the middle of the grocery store, "Hey, Andrew, great to see you in the meeting last night." And then they kind of took me aside and said, now look, I'm glad you were glad to see me, but we don't do that here, like, because the people I'm walking around with might say like, what meeting? And that might be great and it might not be great. So I learned a little bit about, okay, we're supposed to keep it cool. And then people would tell really great stuff in the meetings. And so I'd go tell everybody else about what they said in the meetings. And because it was so interesting, and then I got slapped around a little bit there. And I've made just about every mistake you can make growing up in this program, because that's what the program did for me, was kind of teach me to grow up. And by that, I mean to get a little bit better idea about what the right thing to do is, and how it might affect other people. So at first I thought anonymity was kind of about being hidden and secretive for good reason, like so that, people don't get in trouble at work, or people who are a little bit nervous about it, or they have a fragile start. They don't want to be exposed. I got all that. Then I kind of got the part about like, oh, we don't make heroes out of people. I don't know if you can swear on this program, but my good buddy, Andrew, that Steve knows, after he watched my behavior for a while, he said, what are you trying to do? Be king of the dipshits? So he understood that thing, like, well, if I can't be something special over here, I could go to AA and be special, and I could tell everybody what to do and how to rearrange the meetings and how to take, just do things better, because it looks pretty sloppy and kind of a big mess here, So then I learned about, oh, well, maybe we don't have heroes and leaders and, movie stars in the program for lots of different reasons. Like one of them might be that even if we got somebody internationally famous, they can relapse and fail. And then as I learned to study and read what Bill had to say and other people, they talked about going through all that stuff. Like at first it was kind of fear-based, like let's take care of ourselves and not expose. And then after some of us wanted to be big, just big leaders in this thing and just go out and talk to every magazine, that didn't work either. So I spent a bunch of years just trying to understand the power of anonymity and what it all meant. But when I read this thing for real, and people like Stephen urged me to meditate on what that might mean, that anonymity is the spiritual foundation, I really had to sit down and think, how could it be a spiritual foundation? I mean, it's cool and everything, but how could it be the foundation of everything else we're doing in these traditions, and maybe even the whole program? And then it occurred to me, like, yeah, that there's a real specialness in this thing, that we're the same. Like, okay, you check the ego at the door. And what does that kind of mean? Like Sandy Beach said, checking the ego was like the last line in the St. Francis prayer, which is, if I want to be born to something really special and eternal, I need to die in another way. So what, and then somebody asked him, what does that mean? What has to die? And he said, oh, just all your opinions and all your judgments, and what your special breakfast and your special girlfriend and your special car and your special political group, and like all the stuff that you think makes you special and that you need everybody else to know about. Maybe we check that, because there's something more special about you that's at the heart of you, that's at the heart of your spirit, and is at the heart of every person's spirit in this program, which is the hope that they could be loved and not be in their disease, and that they could like themselves and be meaningful in life and form connections again. And there is a true specialness that's happening here, and it has very little to do with your opinions and your judgments and how cool you think you are, how powerful you think you are in the areas of having it to be your way. So then we get into humility, and the definition, one of the definitions I read in the 12 and 12 of humility was a true recognition of who and what I really am, and kind of what I'm really doing and what I could do about that. Like, maybe keep doing that thing because it's working and it's based on a spiritual principle. Maybe quit pretending like you're all that in a bag of chips in this area, because that's not helping anybody, and maybe admitting that you are an alcoholic, and that you were choosing the alcohol to solve something that you didn't want to solve in a better way. So then I got a little deeper into it, and I thought, this idea that we're in an organization where every single person in the organization has the same validity and the same respect and the same power is amazing, because we don't really have a hierarchy of leaders. I mean, we have the positions, the service positions. We have people we admire. We have people we listen to and are inspired by, but really, nobody really is better than anybody else. And that's pretty amazing to find an organization that would really be willing to act on that and not just talk about it, but actually act on it. And then I realized something very interesting and beautiful to me was that would be the only way that an organization could be led by the Holy Spirit. Because in the same way as an individual that I would have to empty something out of myself and let something die in me in order to listen to my higher power, the whole organization would have to be that way. Because how often has the minority opinion been the one that we had to listen to? Like, what if we had leaders and real strength and we were just dynamic in our organization and we weren't going to listen to all that? You know, what kind of organization would it have to be where even one single member could say something that we would listen to and go, whoa, that's the Holy Breath talking, or that's, you know, we would have to be not in some kind of linear structure to do that. We would have to be in some kind of ability that we're all there together, all listening together, all trying to find our way together. And that would have to keep happening over time. So even as we grew, we would have to not start establishing leaders and structures that couldn't listen to the Holy Spirit. I call the Holy Spirit that guiding voice that tells us what the next right thing might be to do. I'm not trying to get on a religious tangent here. I'm just saying that I think it's remarkable that we could be an organization that could listen to higher power. So that's now why I think that when it says anonymity is a spiritual foundation, I think it's that ability to, as a group, hold each other in that kind of sacredness, that we're all the same and we're all looking basically for the same thing. And I think that's enough out of me right now, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Kent. And also, what's been a part of this format is crosstalk often, and questions and answers. We're just a real informal group. So, wondered if I could ask you a question or two.
Oh, absolutely.
In the tradition 12 about anonymity, what was it like for you to come into AA? I know you held a professional position in a small community. I just wondered if what was that like for you?
Well, after all my years of pretending and struggling and being pretty much not the guy you wanted to show up at the meetings, I was so happy, and I was, you know, I was pretty fragile when I cried and got there and my hand shook and so forth. I had the sobriety date of 10/4, October 4th, and I loved it because it felt like God was finally saying to me, "That Kent, that's a big 10/4. I would like you to be here now." And I was like, "Yes, I would like to be here now." And so I kind of went the other direction, since everybody on that little island already knew, because I'd been 86th out of every major bar on the island anyway. They all kind of knew who I was, and I wasn't really hiding. I actually told my principal and my superintendent and my fellow teachers that I was really, after I'd been there for a while, not right away, but after I'd been there a while, I kind of shared, like, this is who I hope to be, and this is what I'm working on, and I have a sponsor, and I'm doing my steps. And you know, what happened out of that over the next 5 years is lots of people at the school came to me for help and advice and guidance, and a lot of people actually went into the program through people that I knew. And it was always something that I actually shared what I was doing with a lot of the groups that I was with on the island. But, you know, over the years, I also saw how many other people could not do that. They were not in a position to do that. They were not in a position of trust or in their organizations that it would work as easily for them. But if that's what you meant by that, is I didn't really hide my own anonymity. I just tried to practice the walking that I did in the program everywhere in a reasonable way. I didn't put a newspaper headline out in the local South Whidbey paper, but I did share it with everybody.
Well, thank you. And I see that Josephine joined us, so I want to welcome her and thank you for coming, Josephine. And we're going to hear next from Brigitta. And Brigitta, happy anniversary.
Thank you. I'm Brigitte. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi,
And
Brigitte.
yes, on December 4th, I celebrated 5 years. And it took me a long time. I dabbled in the rooms of AA for many years. And it's interesting to me that Tradition 12 definitely was all about fear, not wanting to be known, um, not wanting to be identified as an alcoholic. And when I lived on the East Coast, I would go to the next town over to AA meetings in the hopes that indeed no one would recognize me. And I think I had so much shame. I was in a fairly public position in my town and was supposed to be an example, and yet was really hating myself and judging myself and just feeling very worthless. Um, and so because of the fear of being found out, that because I couldn't, even though I knew of this tradition, I didn't trust it in the rooms. I honestly didn't, because I was of the opinion, well, everyone's human, so that's not, And so that just kept me kind of skirting around the edges. Um, and in a way, my one of my biggest fears. So I moved out to Seattle. I got a offer of a job, and it was an even bigger public kind of position. And I go to an AA meeting first thing, moving to Seattle, and what happens? But someone comes up to me and introduces himself as part of my organization. And you think that would, I mean, we're in the same meeting, for God's sakes, who cares? I mean, we're in it together. But I was so mortified uh, and still very shame-based that I never went back and to a meeting at that meeting. And then again, just skipped along until, of course, the disease progressed and it caused a lot of health issues. And I think that for me, for decades, I kept thinking I need to figure this out myself. I'm supposed to be able. I'm a smart person. I should be able to figure this out. And finally, surrendering to the fact that I can't figure this out. And thank God for that. So when Steve mentions at the beginning about that first sentence, that we realize that the sacrificial spirit, well symbolized by anonymity, is the foundation of all traditions. Sacrifice. I've come to move past the shame, thank you, and I'm grateful for that. It was like an opponent that was, the shame was an opponent that was an illusion created in my mind. And learning how to trust and watching all of you very carefully on how you were navigating life and indeed wanting what you had and the peace and the ability to to walk through life with sanity. So for me, sacrifice. So when I looked it up, I came across sacrifice as the first definition was slaughter. That seemed pretty brutal. And I was like, oh my God. And the second thing, a definition was surrendering a possession. So perhaps, as Steve was mentioning, is something I don't want anymore, and I'm giving it up for something better. But I'm not sure that I knew that in this process. I'm not sure if I still really truly understand that. But what I've come to appreciate is how deep and what a deeply spiritual practice it is, anonymity. It's not in the end fear-based at all. It's sacrifice. It's surrendering my ego. And I heard in the rooms recently how a reminder that the ego rebuilds itself. So it's something I have to pay attention to. In the language of the heart, in this tradition, it talks about the importance of prudence. So to me, that's being awake, paying attention, and I think that's I noticed the need for that. And as Bill sees it on page 198, the thing that really strikes me is how all-encompassing anonymity really is. The practice says, it says here that the opinion came up that this tradition is wrong, that we don't need anonymity. They forget that during their drinking days, prestige and the achievement of worldly ambition were their principal aims. They do not realize that by breaking anonymity, they are unconsciously pursuing those old and perilous illusions once more. They forget that the keeping of one's anonymity often means a sacrifice of one's desire for power, prestige, and money. They do not see that if these strivings became general in AA, the course of our whole history would be changed, that we would be sowing the seeds of our own destruction. And I mean, I think that's what Kent was talking about. And for me, what I struggle with right now is not, I don't think that I want to like create a recovery center in the name of Brigetta, but I do have this incredible gratitude for how AA and its posture of surrender becomes actually life. What I think I'm giving up, like the surrender piece of step 1 and step 2 and step 3. Well, anyway, it just, what I thought was the end of my life was actually the beginning of my life. And the anonymity part is, I guess, also, like Ken said, right sizing, like, who am I really? I just wish, well, I think that many traditions, spiritual traditions, have this posture of humility in their practices, but somehow it gets lost in the way. I don't know if any other tradition could have anonymity. I mean, it wouldn't function. But thank goodness that this practice of anonymity is, it just kind of makes sense and was possible for AA. So I guess, yeah, I kind of wish everyone, I don't know, I feel like I see a lot of suffering around me, and I just, I can resonate with that suffering. And I wish that, I don't know, the anonymity, somehow I wish I could be part of making that relieving that. But you know, I hear I'm babbling here, and I'll finish up. You know, I used to think, hey, this is what the church needs. The church needs to become an AA organization, and um, and of course I don't think it could function. Uh, but what I have brought to um, the church is I brought the principles of AA into the church. So in some ways, um, it's they don't know where it's all coming from, but it's deeply rooted in the principles of AA. And for that, I think perhaps I am relieving suffering by being kind um, and loving and curious. Anyway, thank you for letting me share.
Well, thank you so much, Brigitta. And I sure identified with when you said you thought it was the end, but it was really the beginning. That's what it was like for me too. Going to an AA meeting, thinking that I might see somebody that recognizes me. I had so much guilt and shame. I was horrified that I would run into somebody I knew, because back then I was a man of position in the community. And in my mind, like doctors and lawyers and professionals could look up to me. You know, I had a used car lot. And so, of course, it was just a couple of meetings later where I run into somebody that I knew in the used car business. And he saw the look on my face like deer in the headlights, and I'm already thinking, who's he gonna tell? I'm so ashamed, you know, I've been discovered. And I don't remember if he actually did or not, but like put his arm around my shoulder and he said, "It's okay, Steve." He said, "If anybody ever finds out that you're here, they might just think that you have a problem and you're fixing it." And it was just an expression of generosity on his part. But you know, it took me a long time. I thought coming to AA, I had to show people what I was. And my projection was, you know, a successful businessman that was having some drinking problems. Or the real truth was I was a successful businessman that my wife was kind of bitchy. And every time I drank, she seemed to get bitchy. But at any rate, what I found out, oh, and the truth, of course, was so far from that. I had made terrible financial decisions. I was way behind on taxes, and yet I'm driving up in my Mercedes to the meeting, at least at first. 3 years later, it'd be a Pinto, but in the beginning, it was a Mercedes. And what I found out just through the years in AA is it's not about what I was. AA was more interested in who I was. And I was an alcoholic, and I had a lot to be healed. And as Kent talked about equality too, I identified in that way with everyone. We were alcoholics in search of a better life, of a healed life. And it didn't matter the position after a while, but it did at first. Just the pride and the shame and the open and welcoming arms that I found at the meetings that I went to, because what was being passed on to me was the 12th tradition. It's not about who I was. It's not about what I was or what I thought I was. It's about who I was. And the organization of Alcoholics Anonymous showed us a path to heal those areas that needed healing. And it was way bigger than any personality.
It's so interesting hearing you say that because as you're sharing that, I remember how much effort it took to keep the facade going, you know? Oh my God, it was exhausting. And so what a relief to set that down and say, blanket. And, I'm not going to say the, uh, um, and I guess I realized that, my insides and my outsides are actually aligning up. And that is kind of cool. Yeah.
Okay, and Cindy?
Well, I'm Cindy and I'm an alcoholic. Right before this, I just opened the language of the heart, and I've gone to all these tradition studies and I'm just always amazed at how much I learn. And it says here a glance at the 12 traditions will instantly assure anyone that giving up is the essential idea of them all. In each tradition, the individual or the group is asked to give up something for their general well. And then it goes through and it tells how each tradition does that. And for tradition 12, it says, in its mood of humble anonymity, plainly enough comprehends the preceding 11. So I don't know, I felt a lot of what everybody has said here. I remember going into my first meeting and being terrified. I had to walk all the way across the room that somebody would find me out, and that I had to share that broken part of myself with other people. And receiving the hope when I actually did that. And then all the mistakes that I've made, and still being welcoming. I mean, people tell me, oh, that's kind of a mistake, but they still love me. I was, I went to a meeting where we were just discussing anonymity, and everybody who shared was saying how their anonymity had been jeopardized, and not me. Mine was, I did it to somebody else, and totally, it was a total, I just blew it. I mean, I was at a party and this guy I had known, I had seen in a meeting, but I couldn't figure out where I had seen him. And then my friend came up and said, did you figure out where you saw him? And it was like, what? Yeah, I messed up. And he was so gracious, Oh my gosh. So I guess I'm thinking about sacrifice. What am I giving up? That I think I'm special, or that I don't know. I don't know. Thank you. I love what everybody said. Thanks.
Thanks, Cindy. And
Thanks, Cindy.
I guess Lara's off camera now, I think, but she has to get up and go sometimes because we're at the office, and her duties may call her out at the front desk. So I want to give you a chance
Yeah.
while you're still here.
Well, thank you. My name's Lara and I'm an alcoholic, and
Hi, Laura.
I've been studying this tradition with a couple different people and in the home group this month. So I've been thinking a lot about this, and what I think that I want to talk about right now is anonymity and humility. and that the idea of pride in reverse. I feel like I definitely suffer with my ego and pride and want to be a big shot, but I also want to be viewed as no big deal also. And that's sort of pride in reverse. And I was just talking to Stephen about this a few weeks ago, and when somebody asked me to speak, and my initial reaction is, "Oh no, you don't need to hear me speak. There's enough Lara around," and Stephen just reminded me that the ego always responds first, and so that is kind of what I am thinking about with the sacrifice and humility. Humility, the definition of humility being seeing myself clearly, which is not through the lenses of pride in reverse, but that there is a message of hope and recovery and of Alcoholics Anonymous that I can share. And if I'm asked to share it, then it is my responsibility to do so. And so that's interesting to me. I also, I'm not really. We have a tendency to want to have rock stars in AA, and I mean there are true rock stars in AA, but I mean the alcoholic ego is quick to want to be revered in Alcoholics Anonymous, and we have a tendency to want to place people on pedestals, and that happens to people right here in Seattle. We have our little local hometown circuit speakers, and then we've got meetings that fly people in from other places. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I just think that I need to be careful of thinking that anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous has any more of an important message than anyone else. If you have a message of you used to be hopeless and you found hope in Alcoholics Anonymous, there's no greater message than that. And I've learned that really through, the Seattle group. We have local speakers that come in every Saturday, which can all be heard on our YouTube channel. Some, definitely some have a more, eloquent sort of delivery than others, and some are more comfortable speaking in front of crowds than others, which may make us think that they're better speakers than others. But truly, everybody that's spoken here has had the same message of hope. And I really like that about the Seattle group and about our meeting. We're not flying any circuit speakers in to deliver a flourishing message from the beyond.
We might fly Kent in.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Wait, I'm a local. I'm just away from home. Come on.
Okay, you're in. Anyway, that is something that I've been thinking about as far as anonymity, and there's no superheroes in Alcoholics Anonymous. There are leaders. I do know that there's no leaders in AA, that meaning that everyone has one vote and no vote is more important than the others. But there are leaders in Alcoholics Anonymous. Bill Wilson wrote an essay about it and how important it is to have leaders in Alcoholics Anonymous. With humility, of course. Nobody likes a leader being drug around by their ego. Those are the kinds of folks that get under our skin. But a leader with true humility is one that Alcoholics Anonymous needs. So with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thanks, Lara.
Thanks,
And
Lara.
I got a real quick rock star story.
Oh, yes.
So I was at this noon meeting and it was kind of big and the speaker was very, very mild spoken, so we couldn't really hear. And it's not a meeting I go to very often. I'm talking to this guy who's sitting next to me. Not where we're disrupting the meeting. We couldn't hear the speaker anyway. So we're just talking a little bit. And it wasn't, I don't even remember what we were talking about. But anyway, we were. After the meeting, all these people came up to me, which surprised even me because I didn't speak at the meeting. They didn't call on me. And they're saying, Steve, what did you guys talk about? And I'm saying, what do you even mean? And it turns out that the guy I was sitting next to talking is extremely famous in the Seattle area. I never recognized him. I didn't even know who it was. But there was like, I was starting to feel good just by recognition. I mean, by association. And so everybody's telling me, you don't know who that is? He's this and this and this. And I had heard of him, but I didn't know him from Adam. And so that's my rock star story.
You were
Anyway.
rock star adjacent.
Yeah, it's rock star adjacent. And we just met you.
Yeah.
And you want to say hi and say welcome here.
Appreciate it. I have just two things just going through my head. One was the principles before personalities. I was told once that it's principles before personalities, not principles and no personality. I take that ability and ego in stride because people coming into the rooms, including myself, come from all walks and different backgrounds, and I find myself, being in these rooms, as an alcoholic, I have black and white thinking, and so I have absolutes in mind, and I used to not think those were something that I wanted, but then I realized that I'm never going to be perfect, and I view that with the same grace as everybody else, because I know that this is a program of progress. And when it came to anonymity too, I'm reading Pass It On right now, and Bill's talking about early on why they established this anonymity, and this famous baseball player back, and then he came out and they thought it would be a great idea. He took it on too. He was like, gosh, we need to be known. We need people to support us and back us and have paid missionaries and all that. And he realized that that wasn't a good idea. And what I can relate to is what he said is that if we justify, our reasons for having great ideas about paid missionaries and all that, then the next alcoholic is going to have thinking that they have just as good of a cause, and justify that and rationalize that to say, hey, I'm believing in this and this. Why can't I justify this? This is what we need to do. And so he shut that down pretty quick. And I think that was really special because I when coming into the rooms, I had great ideas about how the world worked, and sometimes I still do. And that anonymity piece really allows me to see my place. And Laura touched on it too, about being a leader, and the other side of that being a trusted servant. And when I hold positions in my home group of service and getting out into the community and speaking at panels and things like that, it's a really great feeling, which used to be daunting, was that I can represent AA just as a humble alcoholic and trying to strive for that ideal, that I don't have to have any opinions on outside issues, or I have to lambast anything or give my opinion. I'm really comfortable nowadays when somebody says something that irritates me, just being quiet, because my opinion is dandy, but I can keep that to myself, right? Like, to me, that's not the point of any. It used to be, oh, you need to know my opinion. I have to make my presence known because this is my experience and these are facts and all this stuff. And now I just realize I can go 24 hours without really having to give my opinion on anything, and I can still find some serenity and grace in that. And that's bizarre to me, because I used to think that if it's in here, it's got to come out. It has to. That's how I process. But this program gives me ability to humbly accept that and work with it with a higher power. That's the release. That's where I can find that serenity instead of making a reliance on people, places, and things. And for me, that's anonymity, because I don't have to make myself public in any matter where I see fit to make my designs, be heard or to whoever wants to hear them. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Austin, and thanks again for coming down here for this. And so we're going to expect you next year
Yeah.
for the 12 tradition or the 12 principles.
Thanks, Austin.
So, Josephine, you're up.
Uh-oh. Hi, I'm coming up on my 5th year in January. My birthday will be in January. I was raised as a Quaker, and then I spent 29 years studying the Gurdjieff movement, the work it was called. And I then segued into Buddhism for another 10 years. And I have to say that somehow in AA, there are tools that actually help me. And I don't know if these other systems were just above my head, maybe. I think certainly Buddhism was. And anyhow, when Justin, or what was his name? This young- Austin had just talked about black and white thinking, it rang a bell, because I know my husband, who died years and years ago, he used to say, you have black and white thinking. And it's true. I wasn't a heavy drinker, but I always saw the world as in black and white. There were good people and bad people. And I spent a lot of time hating the bad people. So somehow I have tools now that have been very, very helpful for me. And as far as anonymity goes, at first I, in the work, we weren't allowed to tell even our parents that we were in the work, because it might ruin one might describe it in a way that would ruin the person coming into the work. And so I didn't understand about anonymity at all. And my daughter, one of my daughters is all of my daughters are in AA, but one of them was very ashamed. And I just couldn't understand that. Like, why would she be so ashamed of it? And I did all the things that Kent was talking about, like, outing people or wanting to gossip after meetings. And it's all fallen away, because I feel like I've seen now what the deeper meaning of anonymity is. And I can't probably express it better than it's already been expressed, but just the idea that I don't bring all my stuff, all my I'm a Democrat, I was in the work, I'm from the East Coast, or all these things that I identify myself as being are irrelevant. And that's amazing. That is an extraordinary concept. So that's about it for me. And
Well,
thank you for listening.
Yeah, and thanks for coming, Josephine.
Sure.
Hey, Josephine, I studied Gurdjieff and Steiner and Ouspensky and Krishnamurti and Ram Dass, and I was pretty sure I was the most spiritual guy in my jail cell. So,
No doubt.
Love it. I love it. And also, I came because I'm a fan of Kent's and Brigitta, but I'm a fan. And so when I heard that they were coming, I wanted to hear what they have to say.
Okay,
I want to hear from all of you.
and I'm a fan of Nancy's.
Me too.
me too.
Was that my cue?
Yeah, that was your cue.
Well, I'm Nancy and I'm an alcoholic, and thank you everybody for a great heart-opening talk about anonymity, about this principle of anonymity. As I was thinking about it, it struck me that we start with tradition 1, you know, where our welfare and our recovery depends on AA unity. So it begins with unity, and this 12th tradition, you know, that is what it emphasizes, our unity, right, and our equality. And so it kind of runs all the way through these traditions. And I too was like, when I first got into AA, the only meaning I gave to Anonymous was like, don't tell anybody that I'm in this meeting. And you think about it, that's an impossible task, because you're going to different meetings all the time. Of course, your name is going to get out there. I remember being in meetings many years ago, and somebody from the place that I worked would randomly walk in, and I would just feel like, oh my God, you know, I have to hide. But that was my take on anonymity. You know, later on, the idea of it grew, and by the grace of God and sponsors and people who had investigated this, had lived in anonymity, and or who had experienced a measure of notoriety in AA and saw what that produces, and what it is they would want more, you know, because honestly, this idea of nobody owns this awakening. No one owns it. And it belongs to all of us. Kent, you talked about specialness, and you know, the idea of being special is kind of like, I don't know, in the DNA, right? And maybe so for alcoholics, you know, but we have self-will run riot and a desire for specialness run riot, whichever way it goes, from I'm the worst to I'm the best, you know. But there's this idea of being set apart, of being separate. But as it flowers, as this idea of anonymity, of spiritual anonymity flowers, it becomes this, we are special, but all of us special in our sameness, right? In our awakening, no matter where we are. And does it ever get touted? You know, probably. Yes, but maybe in, you know, through excitement of something new that is a new insight that needs to be shared. I mean, we share our experience, strength, and hope, and that could be seen in many different ways, right? But I just heard this term the other day. I don't think I've ever heard it, and it's not necessarily connected to AA, but the term was unprofitable servant. And Brigitta, you might be more familiar with the term than I, but it struck me because that is what it seems like this principle of anonymity would be, to be an unprofitable servant, meaning not to be not productive, but it means like to gain no bonus points or merit, special merit for service. And that is, I thought that was a beautiful definition of it, and one that we get to grow into, right? Through trial and error. I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous is known for that, we all, we trip and we fall and we get up again. We've learned something new. We learn to step back. That in the stepping back, there's more revealed. Because I think, and I believe that we are all here because we were drawn here, and we're being drawn to God in many ways that we never ever dreamed of before. One of our early, so no bonus points, but we are absolutely in the bonus round, as our early sponsor called it, that this is the bonus round. But it is a shared experience that isn't owned by any one of us. And I guess that's what came up for me today in thinking about our anonymity. Thanks, Stephen.
Well, thanks, Nancy, and thank everybody here.
Hey,
And-
Steve,
Yeah, Kent,
could I say one more thing about sacrifice?
please.
I looked up its root once, and the word sacred is in there, and it's kind of connected to faith, because the thing about sacrifice is that we're giving it first. It's not like we got something and then we gave something back. It's more like it's a treasure, it's sacred, and it's meaningful to me, but I have to give it up. And in most cases, I don't want to. I don't want to give this thing up, but I have to give this thing up. And sometimes we do it because we love someone, and sometimes we do it because we're desperate. But the gesture of it is that I'm going to give up some. You told me, I asked you once why I couldn't change some other things, and you said because you're still getting something out of them. You think that this thing is still important, and that you're getting something out of it. But the nature of sacrifice is that I'm going to give this thing that I really don't want to give, and I don't know what I'm going to get on the other side. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm being driven to do it. And by its very nature, it's probably the most selfless thing that anyone could ever do, because we don't know what's on the other side. And yet there might be something, but we don't know that for sure. And it's so connected to faith and hope, and it is sacred. And but it's crazy hard, I think, to do as a gesture. I just wanted to say that at the end. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Kent, and thanks everybody for joining us today. And a little plug for next year, this third legacy meeting, we're going to look at the 12 principles of AA, and the time will be posted on our website.
Yes.
And hope you can join us for some or all of them, Kent. And this is a cool meeting. We have no seventh tradition, but maybe we should start one so we can fly Kent out here. Or at least a bus ticket.
Well, if you want to start sending me money, go ahead, and we'll see where it goes.
So why don't we close with the responsibility prayer? And the way we start that here is, who's responsible?
I am responsible.
Whenever anyone, anywhere reaches out for help,
I want the
the
hand
hand
of
of
AA
AA
always
always to be there.
And for that,
And
I
for
am
that,
responsible.
I am
responsible.
responsible.
And
Thank
the
you
hand
all.
of AA is here. Okay.
Great to see you, Kent.
Great to see you, Nancy.
Merry Christmas, and give Trish our love too.
I will do that. Love to all of you. Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.